Hey there, fourth trimester listeners. Our program today is proudly sponsored by Family Album, your secure haven for sharing baby photos and videos. Head over to the App Store today, search Family Album, one word, download the app, and start creating a legacy of love, one photo at a time. Hi, I'm Sarah Trott, and welcome to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I'm a new mama, and this podcast is all about postpartum care for the first few months following birth, the time period also known as the fourth trimester. My postpartum doula, Esther Gallagher, is my co-host. She's a mother, grandmother, perinatal educator, birth and postpartum care provider. Fourth trimester care, our topic, is about the practical, emotional, and social support parents and baby require. And importantly, it helps set the tone for the continuing journey of parenting. Hi, this is Sarah Trott. Welcome back to the Fourth Trimester Podcast. I'm here with Esther Gallagher and a special guest, Alli Merriman, who I'll introduce in just a moment. Before we get started, I want to remind all of our listeners that we have a website, which is fourthtrimesterpodcast.com. And we have a Facebook page. So if you go onto Facebook and you look for Fourth Trimester, please go and like our page and join our group because you can find lots of interesting and good information there that you can read and share with your friends. So I want to tell you a little bit about Alli and why she's here on our show today. So Alli works for a company called Twin Love Concierge, and she is the San Francisco Bay Associate for this group. And we met Alli at the Birth and Baby Fair here in San Francisco and just connected over the fact that our daughters have the same name, which is super cool. and just the area of interest where she focuses, which is twins and multiples. And she also provides private consultations with families before and after twins arrive. She's a mom to a 4-year-old daughter and a 2.5-year-old set of twins, one boy and one girl. Welcome, Alli, and thank you so much for joining our show. Just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about your own fourth trimester experience?
Yes. Well, I have an older daughter, as Sarah mentioned, and also twins. So I had 2 fourth trimesters for 3 kids. The fourth trimester with my oldest was actually quite different than I was expecting, probably same with many of the listeners. My daughter was due December 7th. I was planning on working right up until she was born as a teacher in the Bayview neighborhood in San Francisco. I was imagining myself going into labor while working and going straight to the hospital in San Francisco. Didn't matter that we had moved to the suburbs because I was going to be probably coming from work anyway, because that's where I spent all my time. Of course, by week 27, I went for an ultrasound and they noticed that my cervix was shortening very quickly. I immediately got put on bed rest. By week 28, I was admitted for preterm labor in the hospital. Luckily, they were able to stop the contractions, but they knew then that my baby was going to most likely be a preemie. So fast forward, I had to switch OBs, switch hospitals, all kind of at the last minute. Ended up having my daughter at 34 and a half weeks, and she was in the NICU for 3 weeks. So she was born October 30th instead of December 7th. So NICU time certainly changes that fourth trimester. For one thing, it extends it because the baby kind of develops a couple weeks behind since they were born before their due date. And I struggled a lot when she was in the NICU because I didn't know anyone else who had had the same experience. And the NICU can be a confusing place. The number one question that all your friends and family will ask you is, when's the baby coming home? When's the baby coming home? And what you learn if you have a child in the NICU is that the doctors and nurses cannot give you that answer. So it's really hard when people ask it again and again, and that's all you want is for the baby to come home. And then the people are asking it, but no one's giving you any answers. So yeah, that was pretty isolating, but we got through it and the nurses were wonderful. And then I came home and was struggling. Things were not how I expected. I thought that as an elementary school teacher, I thought I was automatically going to be a perfect mom. No. So I remember laying on my floor after she had been home for a few days, laying on our family room floor, sobbing to my husband because she would take a bottle from him and not from me. So therefore she loved him more, and that's how it would be forever. I struggled, just being home with her all the time. And luckily, everything kind of just worked itself out by the time she was 3 or 4 months. So that was fourth trimester with my oldest. Then twins, I found out I was pregnant with twins. I felt like I was the only person on earth that was going to be having twins when I already had a very young child in addition. I just didn't happen to know anyone else with that experience. My twins were also born early. And again, they came home and I was experiencing just tons of anxiety, really similar to with my oldest, but with multiples, it was times 2. I was just having a tough time. I felt like I wasn't giving my oldest enough attention. I felt like I wasn't bonding enough with my twins. I felt like I didn't have a connection with them. And since there were 2 of them plus another child, I kind of felt like I was just doing an assembly line, like change diaper, give bottle, put down. It just felt not like it felt with my first.
Alli, I just had an image of the mother pig in that wonderful animated movie called Sing.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can absolutely relate. It's one of my daughter's favorite movies.
Yes.
No, that is so true. It really was. It felt like an assembly line and I felt like I wasn't connecting. And since I had already had, my oldest, I could see the difference and that was really hard for me. And then, I wasn't feeling right, kind of wondering, is this postpartum anxiety or not? Going back and forth with my husband. I actually went to my 6-week checkup with my OB. They didn't ask me any questions about anything. This is only 2.5 years ago. My OB didn't ask me anything about postpartum anxiety, depression, nothing. Left that appointment. And it took my pediatrician actually to notice that I wasn't seeming right because she had, been working with me for a few years. The pediatrician mentioned, she's like, you seem really anxious. I had been taking my twins to the doctor like way too much. I'd been taking them to the doctor like once or twice a week, freaking out that something was wrong with my preemies. And she suggested that I get some extra support for that.
I mean, it's impressive that she would broach the subject with you in the first place. And you're not the first mom, in my experience, who's said, that the OB shrugged, did a cervical exam and sent me home. But it was the pediatrician who was able to flag that maybe the babies were great. It was me who needed some attention.
Yeah. And it's actually pretty amazing because once she pointed that out, I tried to make an appointment with my OB and explained why. I said, it seems like I might have postpartum depression or anxiety. And they told me they didn't have an appointment. It was like 4 weeks from then. And I was, desperate. I mean, they didn't know. Luckily, I have a strong support system of family, a wonderful husband. But how did they know? And so they kind of pushed me aside even when I told them my concern. Luckily, I have an awesome general doctor. So my general doctor, who happens to be a father of twins, his 3rd child was twins, so 4 kids. He was fantastic and helped me too. So yeah, you can't depend, I guess, always on the doctor that you think will be the most help. And I still to this day thank my pediatrician for pointing it out to me because once I realized that and got help, everything was just like everything clicked into place. I ended up making being a twin mom kind of into a career. Well, in more ways than one.
Yes. I think, I certainly can resonate with having the struggles of early parenting, all of parenting, but particularly early parenting, be the thing that launched me on my trajectory in life. So, yeah. Well, you survived and thrived. We're always grateful for that. I just think, yes, it's such an interesting phenomenon that the people who we've come to sort of conflate all things perinatal with, which is obstetricians, really have kind of a somewhat narrow focus, right? It's getting through us through our pregnancy and making sure that baby comes out okay. And that's about it.
Right. And a lot of moms we know don't necessarily think about that 4th trimester period. They're thinking about the pregnancy, and they a lot of times don't plan for that time right after. I do have to say something funny is that my sister is actually an OBGYN in across the country from me. So she luckily has, seen my experience and was horrified. And so she's got that kind of forefront of her mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do think that there has been enough that's come to light and been reported that's reflecting back at OBs that they're starting to institutionalize some sort of structures to try to have somewhat of a net that catches mothers. But I think it's got a long way to go.
Right. Definitely. I agree.
I was curious if you're comfortable sharing what kind of help you ended up getting through your OB.
Well, this is interesting because here's a whole other thing, which is that getting through insurance, finding a therapist that is like specializes in whatever issue you're having, it's nearly impossible. I think we've probably all heard the news stories about this, but I'm one of those people that tried a huge long list of people, and my insurance company would give me a list of like 20 people to call, and 3 people returned my call, and none of them had any open appointments for any time I could go. Plus, I was a mom of 3 kids under 2 years old, so I'm not just going to be like leisurely sitting in the office with all of my little babies with me. So I did end up taking Zoloft, which was the perfect solution for my situation. And I mean, it is too bad that I wasn't able to talk to a therapist, but sadly, that just didn't turn out to even be an option for me.
And the thing is that while you luckily were well suited to Zoloft and vice versa, mental health drugs can be a very challenging thing.
Right. Everyone has different experiences.
Everyone's going to have different experiences, and not all of those are going to be, I don't want to scare anyone away from mental health drugs. I think, they're a godsend, and it can take time and careful observation to establish the appropriate medications when it comes to mental health. So, yeah, it's wonderful and lucky that Zoloft worked for you. And by the way, you're not the first person to tell me about Zoloft.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, when I was having the anxiety, another big support system for me was I'm on a Facebook Moms of Multiples group. I'm in an in-person group too, but I recommend for all expecting parents, but especially parents of multiples, to join both in-person and Facebook groups, because sometimes there are things you don't necessarily want to bring up with people you see all the time or people that might know you outside, of this circumstance. So the Facebook group was really great just for anonymity and to just put things out there without, being afraid that like everyone around me was going to find out.
Good tip.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about twins and multiples.
Yes. Well, obviously I think people automatically think, whoa, it must be so hard having 2 babies at once, just the obvious things. And that's true. And of course, the other obvious part is that it's so rewarding to see your twins interact with each other and have that bond, and just to be able to have the experience of parenting twins, 2 babies that were born on the exact same day. So that's kind of the obvious stuff. The not so obvious part is that I love is that I kind of got to join almost like a sorority of moms. It's just this little like exclusive club of moms, unofficial, being a mom of twins. So anywhere I go, if I'm in Trader Joe's, I might run into, a 70-year-old mom of twins whose kids have grown up, or I might run into another mom who has, 2 infants. But the twin moms all reach out to each other. They, it's like immediately if you find out someone else is a twin mom or vice versa, you have to chat and you have, things in common. Twin moms, like I've noticed too, will just reach out and help even if they don't know you. I went on a recent cross-country trip for my sister's wedding, and my husband, with all the chaos of packing all the kids, forgot to bring any shoes at all for my son. So we flew all the way across the country with no shoes, got to our destination, and another twin mom in Connecticut who I hadn't seen or spoken to in at least 15 or 20 years, insisted on driving over to the place where we were staying with a pair of shoes for my son, just hand-me-downs. But just, it's that kind of thing that happens all the time. I had just moved to the suburbs from the city, and I was working full-time with my oldest, so I hadn't really met that many people in the suburbs, but I was able to meet tons of people through my local Moms of Multiple group. So that's the kind of the benefit for me. And then, life with twins, it is similar to having two kids close in age, but the one difference is that fourth trimester, because that's the only with twins are you going to have two newborns at the exact same time. And that was certainly very, very challenging, just having to have sometimes two babies would be crying at once, and it's hard to console both of them. Dealing with both babies' eating needs, sleep needs, those type of things times two is definitely kind of crazy and overwhelming. But then the pride you have when you finally get things under control and realize that you're capable of taking care of two babies or two babies plus one more, it's almost like it just feels like a really big accomplishment. So that part is nice.
Yeah, Alli, I sort of circling back around on that. Like, I think the average person would find it hard to appreciate, just the variability in twins parenting experience. I do not have twins. I've been the doula for parents of twins many times, postpartum doula. And I have to say that one of the things that fascinated me most from my vantage point was that if I sat down all the parents of twins that I've ever worked with in my living room and said, what I remember about you guys, what I'd be saying is every one of you had two different babies, and each of you had different babies from each other. And so, even the parents who had two kids who, for instance, might have been willing to eat at the same time. Right. Let alone sleep at the same time and get their diapers changed at the same time. Like, they were an outlier. Most babies aren't, even if they're identical twins, they are not doing the same things at the same time all the time. So when you say, as the mother of twins, like, the chaos of it, it's exponential.
Right. Yeah, I was able to, and I didn't, unfortunately, having a doula is something I would recommend to any person expecting twins. If you can afford it, I would absolutely recommend it. I think that is invaluable. Also,
find a way to afford it.
Right. Because also not only because you think, doula extra help, but it's not just the extra help. The doula is able to give you tons of advice. And I think you need someone there to say, like, you've got this, you're doing fine, just that kind of advice, or like you're helping, oh my gosh, the babies are doing this. Is this normal? Just having someone right there to help you in that way, I think is just priceless. Unfortunately,
support.
Yes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to afford that. So I was, talking a lot with other moms in my twin moms group, and I had a high school. This was a great thing for people that might not have as much money. I had a high school girl come over to be a mother's helper for the twins so that I could play with my older daughter just in another room. And this 15-year-old girl, it was funny because she, had no experience with babies. So she was just a fresh, clean slate, a wonderful, sweet girl, and was like the baby whisperer. She was so calm all the time and just so patient with them. And, nothing seemed strange to her because she had never worked with babies in the first place. And I was right there in the house. Her mom's right around the corner. And so that was really good for us. But yeah, I kind of did have to try to keep my twins on the same schedule as much as possible. But the funny thing too is, like you're saying, of them being different, their personalities flip-flop so much too, just in that first year. So whoever is the really, really fussy baby, those first couple weeks, all of a sudden it flip-flops and the other baby is the fussy baby, or whoever, is the good sleeper in the beginning, flip-flop, and then the other person's the good sleeper. So just like with one baby, it feels like everything's a phase and everything's always changing. With two, they're changing and they're flip-flopping. So they're always keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, I worked with parents. There was a disaster in the family. Dad had to fly away, right? Just as those twins were newborn.
Oh, wow.
They had family care during the night, and twins were the one exception I made in my career to working nights instead of exclusively days.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a set of fraternal twin boys, and one of them just refused to breastfeed. So my job every night was to get up with mom when the one baby was hungry, and bottle feed the fella who wasn't going to take the breast while the one who did, and make sure mom had stuff to eat. And that was it. Like that's what we did every night until her husband was able to come home and rejoin the family. But you never quite know in advance what are going to be the specific things.
Right.
Just handling two babies at the same time. My daughter, you were talking about the 15-year-old who just didn't know any better. So she just did it,
Yeah. And she did everything exactly how I wanted because she had no other experience.
Yeah. My daughter had an interesting experience. She worked for a lesbian couple who had twins. And it was very early on. And she told me about sitting Taylor sit, like in yoga, right? On the floor with one baby in one leg and one baby in the other, crossing her arms, crossing her hands with a bottle in each hand and being able to feed those babies. And she just came up with this on her own. And the moms were like, wait, how did you figure that out?
I love it.
So she just was experimental and was able to show them like, it's okay to try stuff.
Right.
Try new things. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing with twins that at least it depends on your personality as a parent, what things are going to work best for you. But I'm someone that definitely needed to have like somewhat amount of sleep to be able to function and to be a good parent. And I also needed to have, some breaks. So my husband and I actually, instead of doing things at the same time, like what you're describing with the twin mom in the nighttime, we did shifts a lot of the time where one of us was in charge of the babies and one of us was in charge of our older daughter. And these shifts were really great because we each got at least like 4 or 5 solid hours of sleep a night. Even, of course I was going to bed at like 6:30, but I got those 5 hours of sleep. And then we each got time with our older daughter. And then the other reason the shifts were great for us is because my husband really got to see what it's like taking care of the twins on his own. Because I do have some friends where the mom kind of just did everything all the time and the dad never even got to really have the experience of taking care of newborn twins without someone helping him every step of the way.
Yeah. Alli, I'll just mention for our listeners that one of our early interviews was with the stay-at-home father of twins.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. He talks a lot about what a train wreck it felt like for the first several weeks. But that, you call in your people and they help you the best they can and you get through it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to listen to that one. That sounds great.
Yeah. Andrew Gentry.
Okay.
Is the name of the dad. Yeah.
Hey, fellow parents, can we take a moment to reflect on the joyous chaos that is parenthood? Those days when our hearts swell with love at the sight of our little ones and we're bursting at the seams to share every adorable moment with the world. But let's be real. Some things are better kept in the family, and your loved ones who matter the most aren't always close by, and they might not be that tech-savvy either. So how can you easily share your baby's beautiful growth with loved ones while keeping your precious memories secure? I remember the frustration of trying to use some of the big tech photo solutions, only to find they fell short of what I needed. That's when I stumbled upon something truly remarkable, the Family Album app. The Family Album app was created to give parents a secure and easy way to share photos and videos with loved ones. It's an orderly and totally secure haven for your family's personal memories.
I love that there's no third-party ads, no unwanted eyes, unlimited storage, and that it's totally free. So to all the parents who are out there still trying to use other messaging apps for your kids' photos, it's time to level up your family photo game with a free photo sharing app. Head over to the App Store today, search Family Album, one word, download the app, and start creating a legacy of love one photo at a time.
So, Alli, I would love to hear, and Esther, from both of you really, about what you think are the main differences if you were to make a list of the 3 things or the 5 things that parents who are expecting twins or multiples could do to help prepare for the 4th trimester.
I would just start with the fact that, pregnancies, this harkens back to your story. Pregnancies don't always last 9 months, right? Alli, your story of saying, imagining that you were just going to work right up to 40 weeks and then go to the hospital, have baby, come home. This is not the reality. Even when it is, it's not the reality. So, I think we need to start shifting culture a little bit towards, don't put all your eggs in the birth basket, right? If you've made it to 12 weeks pregnancy and you're pretty guaranteed that this baby's going to make it to 30 or so, right? Now's the time to start preparing for what happens when that baby does arrive, whenever they arrive. Right. You're going to need support however and whenever your baby arrives. And I'm not even going to say, especially if you have twins, especially if you have a preemie, especially anything. If you're going to have a baby, start preparing for the eventuality that is postpartum.
Yes, definitely agree with that. And then a twin specific or multiple specific thing. It's kind of specific, is just making sure you're in some kind of a group with other parents of multiples, because there will just be differences in that 4th trimester that moms of single babies just won't have had experience with. So I think it's really important to have that kind of a support system, as well as the obvious support system that Esther mentioned about just having, family, friends lined up. And then I think the big difference, in my opinion, with planning for multiples versus a single is, I think with multiples, it is important to keep them on as much of a schedule as you can, because it keeps the parents more sane and focused and better rested so that they can be a better parent, because having 2 babies at once is draining. And with a single baby, schedules obviously are often frowned upon. You're not really supposed to do that. But with multiples, it really can help the family and help the parent's sanity so that they can get through this really tricky couple weeks.
I think my response to that is, I know that this is the advice that everyone gets. And I don't see it as a problem per se, but I do think that there is a real challenge in establishing those schedules. So finding the kind of support around you that is non-rigid, non-judgmental, supportive of the whole family getting what they need. Right. So that it's not at the baby's expense. It's not at the mom's expense. It's not at, the partner's expense, or the 3-year-old or the 9-year-old. Right. There is, I think that here's where I like to be a little idealistic, which is, who can we attract from family, friends, and professionals who's going to see us as a whole family with individual needs that don't have to be in conflict? However we sort that out, whether, and that can include some amount of scheduling, of course. Yeah.
And speaking from that too, about the whole family, that kind of reminds me of another thing, especially for parents of multiples to remember, is that the right way to do things is the way that works for you and your family and your partner. There are a million right ways to do things, and the right way to do something, if it's 2 parents who are home with 1 baby, is different than the right way if you have 1 parent traveling all the time for work and you have twins and an older kid. It's every person's situation is different. depending on so many factors. So the right way for your family and for your baby is the way that keeps everyone in the family's needs met as best as you can. Because, if people's needs aren't being met, then they're not going to be that support system that that the babies need and that the family needs.
Exactly right. I mean, I think that's the lesson, podcast after podcast, show after show, that gets reflected back from people from every angle, right? Like, and as I often say, like, if mom's needs aren't being met for nourishment and sleep, right, then everything is going to start to get pretty shaky.
Right.
So,
and one other piece of advice that I think is important for parents of multiples and for any parents that I think really helped my husband and me is just communicate and talk as much as you can ahead of time about, like, how would we handle this specific problem if it came up? How might we handle this? Talking about things ahead of time. One thing that helped my husband and me is we, besides making time for frequent alone time and date nights and those types of things, which we have done, and I think that's helped us a ton. But another little tiny piece of advice is we were wondering, how are we going to handle it if we're disagreeing about some child rearing practice or some decision of what to do with the baby? What if we both disagree? And we made an agreement then, whatever the pediatrician says we'll do. And it doesn't have to be that. You could say whatever our doula says we'll do, or whatever some other person says will, or, something, but some kind of way to resolve those disagreements. It certainly doesn't have to be the pediatrician. It could be anyone who you know and trust, but some little, outside person that can help you quickly solve those disagreements.
Yeah. That you've designated a referee.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And they, because of their the trust you put in them and their wisdom, you're willing to relinquish the argument to have a solution,
right,
rather than getting stuck in an argument. That's lovely. I think that's some of the best advice I've ever heard.
Well, thanks. And the other funny thing is, I will add, if any listeners out here are pregnant with twins and already have one or two children or however many, I wasn't sure what it would be like, but the transition from 0 children to 1 child was much, much, much harder on our marriage than the transition from 1 child to 3 children. It was almost seamless in terms of our marriage. It was almost seamless, 1 child to 3 children. But I would not say that about 0 children to 1 child.
Yeah. Yeah. Put some trust in the fact that you made it through the first kid.
Yeah, totally.
If you in fact did make it through the first kid,
right.
Which, is an accomplishment in itself. Yeah. Which is not to denigrate or judge anyone who didn't. I am in that category. I have been a single mom, most of my momhood. So, and that can work out too.
Absolutely can. Absolutely. Yeah. And I've definitely even worked with some, single mothers by choice who are pregnant with twins, and they're doing fantastic. It's definitely, so again, too, if you're a single parent expecting twins right now, it's easily possible. You're going to do just fine. You've got this.
Yeah, that's great. Alli, when did you learn of our podcast, and what can you tell us about being a podcast listener?
So I heard about the podcast at the Birth and Baby Fair, of course. Oh. Yeah. And then I started listening the next morning, actually, because as I mentioned, I struggled a lot during my 4th trimester. So this seemed really relevant to me. And probably the things that have stood out the most from the podcast is the emphasis on self-care for the mom, which I think is crucial and often overlooked. And I also, for me, since I wasn't able to, I think being a parent is almost like teaching, where when you're teaching in a classroom with your door closed and you don't necessarily see what everyone else is doing in their classrooms. So I, went through my 4th trimester in my own way. And now by listening to your podcast, I hear more about other people's experiences, and it opens my mind so that I'll have more of a wealth of knowledge when I'm working with, parents. So just like the last episode that I heard, for example, where it was the experience of what exactly does a doula do all day. That was a great one for me to listen to because I want to be able to help parents that I work with to, know what to expect. And I didn't go through it myself. So now, I know a little bit better how to help people.
Great. Excellent. Yeah.
So I am curious to know, what are those common themes or questions that come up when you're working with parents of twins or multiples and their families?
I mean, a lot of people get concerned about the items and what do they have to buy two of and what's the best, item for this, that, this. And of course, I think that most people who already have kids know that the items are not that important. It's the people. So that's one thing I do have to say is that don't go crazy, over buying two of everything and twin specific items and, the stuff. You should really focus more on the people and that kind of support system. So we do get questions about that. And then I think a lot of it is people really just want reassurance that they're going to survive this. They're going to survive having newborn twins and they're going to, still be able to live life, still be able to have time to themselves, still be able to have fun. And I think people kind of want that reassurance. And I know that I really wanted that reassurance from someone who had been through it. And then last is just getting through, daily life with newborn twins, including ideas for helping them sleep, ideas for how to breastfeed twins, ways to bottle feed twins, balancing, pumping, breastfeeding, whatever of those type of things. So those are basically the main areas that parents ask about.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine you periodically give referrals to
absolutely
other professionals like lactation consultants who have a lot of experience
absolutely
with twins. And
we have I actually even know twin specific. And they exist obviously all over the place, but twin specific lactation consultants who are mothers of twins themselves and went through that breastfeeding journey. And I think that is so helpful to breastfeeding twin moms because clearly and obviously it's very different experience.
Yeah. Yes, it is. We want to put in a little quick plug because episode 49 is about all the stuff, and we interviewed Alli El-Adrisi about his little startup called Upchoose, Cocoon at Upchoose. It's on our website, excuse me, episode 49, where he talks about, the proliferation of stuff and that this, there are solutions for not being so stuff oriented.
Right.
And, he has a little subscription business that just sends you the right amount of the little shirts and little pants they need to keep a baby clothed. And it was a fun episode. But yeah, I think it's true. Parents get really focused on product and forget that really, exactly as you said, Alli, it's the folks around you who are going to make this, an enduring, edifying experience. And it's also, I hate to be the one to say it, the people that you judiciously choose not to have around you because
absolutely.
They're not going to add value. They're just going to make life more chaotic and draining.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially those first few weeks home. I mentioned that actually in one of my blog posts just about surviving the first few weeks home. Be strategic about who visits you and for how long.
Yeah.
Alli, would you like to share with our listeners ways that they can find out more about you and get in touch with you?
Yes. So I work, Twin Love Concierge has a great website. All the content is free and it includes product reviews for twin specific products, as well as blogs covering a variety of topics. Some of the blogs are written by our twin lactation consultant. Some of them are written by our twin specific sleep training consultant, as well as just, how to find an au pair, how to find help for things, getting through those first weeks home. So definitely check out our Twin Love Concierge website. There's a section on the website too to learn more information about each of the people that work for the company, and you can find my bio there as well as my email address. And my email is Alli, ALLI, at twinloveconcierge.com. So definitely, some of the things on the website are applicable to people with single babies as well as multiples, but definitely recommend the website for anyone who has twins or triplets or more.
Wonderful.
That's great. And we understand that you have some courses and classes that parents of twins and multiples would be interested in taking.
Yes. So we have different locations in major cities around the country, and also a location in London where we teach on-site expecting twin classes. Some of the locations teach breastfeeding twin classes. Some of the locations teach first year with twins classes. So we have those in different cities throughout the country that you can find information about those classes on the website. And then we also offer lots of different online classes that you can take from anywhere, including the first year with twins, the expecting twins, breastfeeding twins, sleep in twins class. So yeah, all of those classes are available really to anyone, seeing as you can do them online or in person.
Wonderful. And for our listeners, if you're interested in taking those classes, Twin Love Concierge has extended an opportunity for us to give you a code, which is Fourth Trimester, to use when you're checking out. And I think you'll be getting some kind of discount or special offer as part of that for using the code. So you can find out more details about that on our website, fourthtrimesterpodcast.com, or on our Facebook page. Alli, you've been such a wonderful guest for us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Oh, it was great, Alli. I'm so pleased to have had the opportunity to chat with you and hear about your journey and your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you haven't signed up for the newsletter yet, please go to fourthtrimesterpodcast.com and sign up for our newsletter and check out more of our content there. Thank you so much.
You can subscribe to this podcast in order to hear more from us. Thank you for listening, everyone, and I hope you'll join us next time on the Fourth Trimester. The theme music on this podcast was created by Sean Trott. Hear more at soundcloud.com/Sean Trott. Special thanks to my true loves, my husband Ben, daughter Penelope, and baby girl Evelyn. Don't forget to share the Fourth Trimester podcast with any new and expecting parents. I'm Sarah Trott. Goodbye for now.
Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I'll sing a song for you. You got your wheels, you got your gears. You ride around town without any fear. You got your pedals, you got your brakes. You always wear your helmet for safety's sake. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing all that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you. Hello again, bicycle man. I know you're doing the best that you can. I wrote the song, simple and true. I wrote the song, I sing a song for you.